Hey, welcome back to the Too Fast channel. In this video, I'm going to be narrating over a slideshow of photographs, and this will cover installing a set of component speakers into the rear side panels of a Volkswagen EOS. The set I will be installing are the Infinity Kappa 50.11 CS. These are 5 1/4 inch mid-bass speakers with 3/4 inch soft dome tweeters and a two-way passive crossover. You don't have to necessarily use this particular set, but if you use something different, you should use a set that has the same dimensions as this one. Also, I won't be covering the removal of the panel. I will put a link in the description for information on how to remove the rear panels, because I really didn't take pictures of that while I was doing the installation. So you will also need tools, Torx bits, speaker wire, hot glue, silicone, soldering iron, solder, and a Dremel tool, a rotary tool with a bunch of different type of cutting and grinding bits. Now once you get the panel off, first thing I did was remove the existing 5 1/4 inch speaker. You can see that on the right in this picture. The speaker is built into this large plastic frame assembly, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut the speaker out of the frame, and we're going to reuse the frame to mount the new Infinity Kappa shown on the left. That way the speaker placement in the rear panel is identical to the original. This takes a little bit more work, but in the end I think it's worth it. So using the Dremel with a cutoff wheel or a grinding bit, you're going to first off remove the cone from the original speaker, and then you're going to cut out the magnet assembly. And after you get the magnet assembly cut out, you'll go back in probably with a sanding wheel on your Dremel, and you'll sand down all the edges and smooth out the inside. And what you're looking at here is the end result after all that work. It's not that time consuming, but you definitely have to have the proper tools to do it. The next slide that's coming up here, this is the back side of that frame assembly. Now down at the bottom you'll see those two little metal tabs. You want to make sure you don't cut those off. That's what we're going to connect the new Infinity speaker to. You're also going to need to bend those up out of the way because they actually point straight out, and that's going to be a problem with installing, well, at least with installing these Infinity 5 1/4 inch speakers, because they've got really big baskets on them. So I had to bend those up to get those out of the way. And you can see that in this picture right here, because I've got the Infinity fitted and I've got the tabs bent up. So along the way you definitely want to test fit everything, make sure that the speaker is fitting properly, and this is at the point where you're going to need some speaker cable, and you're going to need your soldering iron and some solder, some wire strippers, wire cutters, because we're going to cut a length of speaker cable. Doesn't need to be that long, because we're going to solder it to those two tabs that you bent up. And once you're done with this, you can cover that with some electrical tape or some other type of method if you want to insulate it so it doesn't come in contact with anything. And once you're done here, the other end of the speaker wire, you're going to strip it down and connect it directly to your 5 1/4 inch Infinity Kappa speaker, which you can see right here. And of course, while I had it on the bench, I tested it after I connected this wire and soldered it up to make sure that it was working correctly. I don't think I've got anything else to say about this particular picture, so we'll wait till the next picture pops up and I'll continue on with the narration. In the next section we're going to be actually mounting the speaker to the frame. You'll need some screws. I use some self-tapping sheet metal screws. I pre-drilled the holes. You'll be drilling into plastic, so you don't want to drill big holes, just small holes to get self-tapping screws started. The little tabs on the speaker itself you may have to grind down if they protrude past the edge of the frame assembly. So I screwed it down, and then I ran some clear silicone around the screws and around the outside edge of the speaker, just to make sure that there was no air leakage. And once that was dried, I test fitted this bezel piece, this plastic bezel with the rubber surround on it. This is what's on your factory speaker. You didn't see that at the beginning of the video, but I was test fitting it here to make sure that it fit correctly. I also filled in the gaps between the speaker and this new plastic frame with some foam weather stripping, just as another method to seal off any potential air leaks. Coming up in this next photo, I went back and took the speaker and mounted it back to the factory location with the 4 bolts. This is the foam right here. This is the original sound deadening foam that's there. It's kind of pulled back so I could work in this area. The factory harness will plug directly into the speaker frame, but we've got to cut the factory wires because the signal coming from your head unit needs to go into the two-way passive crossover, and then you'll run one lead out of the two-way passive crossover to the woofer, and that's where we splice the cable there. And of course the other speaker lead goes to the tweeter, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Going back to the passive crossover, I secured it just to the left of the mid-bass woofer using 3M two-sided tape. You could use silicone or hot glue if you don't have 3M two-sided tape. This spot that I chose here coming up was perfect. It wasn't in the way of anything, and it was close enough to the speaker where I didn't have to have a lot of extra wire. So this is where I mounted the passive crossover and tied up all the wiring and got that out of the way. What you don't see here is the wiring that comes down to the bottom of that foam and then goes to the door panel. That's for the tweeter. So you'll have to, in my case, I routed it underneath the foam and brought it up from the bottom. And we'll be taking a look at that, well, shortly. After this was all done here and the silicone or the hot glue was dried, I put all of the foam back in place. So this is more or less what it's going to look like when you're all done. You've got the baffle bezel piece, the plastic and rubber piece reinstalled. Don't forget to do that. And also don't forget to test your speakers before you install the door panel again. Go back and turn on your stereo and make sure that they're both working. You don't want to put the door or the rear panel on and then discover you forgot to connect something. Then you got to take it off again. Not that I've ever done that, but so before you put the panel back on, we've got to do the tweeter. This is the factory 3/4 inch tweeter, and you're going to need to use a utility knife and all of that white glue or silicone. You're going to have to cut it out or cut it so you can pry the tweeter out. Be careful you don't break the mount that tweeter is in, so be careful cutting all that silicone out. The little yellow piece behind it is a capacitor. You've got to cut that out and remove that as well, so you'll need to use your little flat-bladed screwdriver to pry that all out. If everything goes well, you'll end up with this, which is your little empty grill assembly, which you can go back in with your utility knife and clean up any excess silicone or glue that's left over, and prep it for the installation of the Infinity Kappa 3/4 inch tweeter. Definitely if you choose another set of speakers, I wouldn't suggest going with a 1-inch tweeter because it just will not fit in this location. The 3/4 inch Infinity fits almost perfect. It just doesn't snap into place, unfortunately, the way the outer frame of it is. You can see right here. It also has a grill already on it. That's the piece on the right hand side of the picture with the chrome bezel. You can use your flat blade screwdriver to pry that off. And just be careful you don't poke the soft dome or damage that in any way, because we won't need that grill. Once you get that popped off, you're going to take your tweeter and you're going to fit it into the factory grill piece on the door panel. You'll have to kind of push it into place and get it situated, and then you'll have to go back in with either some hot glue or some clear silicone. In my case, I used hot glue. I went all around the tweeter, and I also put some hot glue on the speaker wire coming out. That way, if I ever remove the panel again, the wire doesn't yank on the tweeter. I also installed some quick disconnects, so if I do need to remove the panel again, I can quickly unplug it. I can remove the panel, gain access to the wires, unplug it, and then set the panel aside, and then I can go in and work on the speaker or the crossover. That's pretty much all I have for the installation of this. So that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. This will give you an idea on a process to install components into the rear of your Volkswagen EOS. Again, mine's a pre-facelift car. I don't know what you might find on a facelift vehicle. I'm assuming it would be roughly the same, but keep that in mind. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this video, and hopefully you found this information helpful with your stereo installation. Thanks a lot for watching.